The following is a conversation with Chauncey Moulding. Chauncey's our current county attorney here in Fairfield, Iowa, and the purpose of today's video is really just to ask some questions and get a better sense of who the candidate is. So if you watched the one video, I would just encourage you to watch the other one with Ed Harvey. And as always, it's just me, a couple of cameras, microphones, and a whole lot of editing behind the scenes. So if you want to support the channel, you can like this video, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, and I hope you enjoy. Thanks for watching. Chauncey, thanks for being on the show, man.
It's a pleasure, man. Yeah, thanks for the invite. Appreciate you reaching out and setting this whole thing up. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
County attorney, it's kind of like, if you're doing your job well, it's kind of like being a plumber or something. People don't... is that a bad way to start?
No, it's not a bad way to start. There's no bad ways to start, right? It's your show. You can start however you want. Start by calling me names.
No. I meant that, like, when the plumbing's done right, you just appreciate that it's good.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of work that went on behind the scenes.
That is an interesting way to put it. I think you're right from like a public perspective. But one thing that kind of gets lost in my job is, I'm the county attorney, and my principal job, and the one that kind of takes most of my energies and most of my focus and most of the attention is, I represent the state and district court in criminal proceedings before the court. So I'm essentially the criminal prosecutor for the county. And a lot of these things, they get kind of the terms get messy. It's the same thing as like a DA, which is the common parlance, but that's only common parlance because most movies and TV shows and stuff are set in LA and New York, and they call them DAs there. So, but Jefferson County is the district that I represent, and so that's the principal focus of my job. But there are a whole bunch of other responsibilities and kind of duties that are set forth in the code that take a lot of other behind the scenes efforts. And like another very big one is that I'm the legal representative of all the officers and offices of the county. So when there's an issue going on, the roads department issue with the supervisors, a big part of my job is kind of giving them legal counsel and legal advice on what they can do and where the lines are. I always kind of describe it as, if it's a football field, I show them where the end zones are, and they kind of where the lines are on the field, and they can make their decisions within the legal playing area. So there's a lot more to it than just being the criminal prosecutor, but obviously that's kind of the big focus.
Yeah. And then remind me again, when did you first start being county attorney, and then what have you learned along the way? How has it changed for you?
Well, so I graduated from law school back in 2015, and I worked for the courts for a couple of years before. I ended up becoming a criminal prosecutor in 2017. Well, actually, no, it was 2016. I was working on a case with a judge. It was kind of a big, sad arson case with a couple of people dead, and we heard some testimony from some investigator about, what they did and what they didn't do and how they kind of brought the case to where it was. And we went back after we were hearing all this testimony, me and a couple of people that work for the court, and we're just kind of Monday morning quarterbacking and talking about, the evidence and what was going on. And anyway, we just started talking about the course of the investigation. And the judge started asking me, it's like, oh, Chauncey, you're poking some holes in how this went, and maybe what do you want to do with yourself? That's I guess the moral of the story. The question he was asking me, and at the time, this is 2016. I just graduated, and I had an interest in investigations, solving mysteries, and getting out there and fighting corruption, and all that kind of putting the world right type of work. And had a couple of applications in with some federal agencies. I was, interested in maybe working for the State Department doing diplomatic security or the FBI. And judge told me, oh, there's an opening for a prosecutor up in Keokuk County and Washington counties. And that had kind of been a consideration of mine, but it wasn't necessarily on my front burner. But he put in a call. I went and interviewed, and I took a job with John Schrader and John Gish up in Washington and Keokuk counties. So that would have been the end of 16. I started working for them, kind of halftime Keokuk, halftime Washington County, and it's as far as the way the judge explained it is, being a criminal prosecutor is as close to being like, a mystery solving, special agent, kind of work, while also still being a lawyer and actually representing your community. And so that's kind of what he sold it for me. And I interviewed, and it's not really like that. That's not the job. Your job is not out there. You're not a detective. You represent the county and the state, and you present evidence. You don't develop evidence. One thing that's, sometimes I have to catch myself and pull myself back is, I can't be out there like, discovering things that need to be presented in court. That's why we have the police department. That's why we have detectives, investigators, state agents, things like that, is because I can't be my own witness, right? I rely on the expertise and the investigations of people that work in that capacity to build a case, present a case, and then I will, show that and present that to the jury through their testimony. So I think I've kind of trailed off on your original question here.
No, that's great.
When did I start? I guess the question was, when did I start? I started in 2016.
Yeah, that's terrific.
And I was elected here in November of 2018.
Got it.
So, yeah.
Cool. I have this vague memory because we grew up together here in Fairfield.
Yeah.
You're a little older than I am, but
years.
Yeah,
you were in my sister's class, right?
That's correct. Yeah. But didn't you do something like you were National Guard or Coast Guard or something?
Yeah. So I graduated MSAE in 2002. And then we went to war in 2003.
Yeah.
And I was in college. I was at Iowa, and the war in Iraq was kind of a political formative moment for me. I think that a lot of times, the development of your political consciousness kind of takes either a crisis or a circumstance. A lot of people in older generations point to Watergate, or they point to Vietnam, or for me, I was massively concerned about the war. But also at the same time, sometimes you have two minds of something. You don't, you're not happy about what's going on. You feel like this is a crisis and this is terrible. But also, your nation is going to war, and you want to kind of support it and do something. I felt this need to do something, and I was going to Iowa. I just, had some personal tragedies, and I was just I was doing it because it was the thing to do. You graduate high school, maybe you should go to college and figure out what you want to do with your life. That's not a great idea. I've learned, going to school just to go to school, I don't think is great advice. I think that,
well, it can get expensive pretty quick.
It can get expensive. I was studying, I wanted to be a journalist, and then I wanted to be a historian, and there's no money in either of those things. But, I thought that if I could, just tell a story and get information out there to the public as a journalist, you might be able to positively impact the world and, change the course of history, all that stuff. Well, I was kind of spinning my wheels, and I wanted to do something. I wanted to go have an adventure. I wanted to, get out there, and called a Coast Guard recruiter, went and met with them a couple of times, did all the testing and stuff. They took me in, and from 2004 to 2008, I was up and down the Pacific coast in the Coast Guard doing various things. Search and rescue. I was on boats out of Hawaii and California. Served on aircraft and ships, doing counter-narcotics patrols down to South America, did intelligence work for Jihad of South, kind of looking for smuggling outfits, boats. One of my cool jobs was I'd sit in the air-conditioned intel station in El Salvador, get all the reports and stuff from people back in the States, and I'd be there with an air crew. So it's very cool to deploy with an air crew because, your boss is a lieutenant, he's 26, I'm like 22, and there's about 10 of you, and you're all down there. You're a self-contained, self-operating outfit, and you're there staying, in a hotel in the middle of Central America, and your boss is a couple years older than you, and you're an independent operator. Obviously we get, tasking and stuff, and it was my job to collect all the tasking, all the stuff, basically where we're supposed to go. I would draw it up on a map. I'd brief the guys in the morning. I would get up at 4:30, cruise in, put the brief together, be like, all right, guys, here's where we're going today. Go look for these guys. They're supposed to be in this kind of boat, and good luck. And then I'd wait around for about 5-6 hours, or sometimes go with them, and then debrief them when they came back and put the reports together and ship it back to the States. So
wow.
It was fun. It was a great job. Got out in 2008, and there are times where you think back and you're like, man, what are all my old buddies doing? And Facebook makes that easy, right?
It does, yeah.
You check in on them like, oh wow, you're here, you're doing this, that's cool. But I'm pretty happy with where I landed. So,
yeah,
use that as a springboard to go to law school, and here I am. So
yeah, I thought it was interesting actually that you said you had some interest in journalism, because I think there's got to be a lot of similarities to what you're doing now, which is, just fielding information, getting it right, having a very unbiased approach.
So one thing that really is kind of a big part of my job is telling stories, right? I always say, an interesting story. Well, if you tell an interesting story, a compelling story, you can kind of move people, right? And when you've got to convince 12 people about what the facts are, doing it in kind of a compelling way that really kind of gets the point across while also, painting a picture, I've found to be effective. So I think that a good lawyer is a good storyteller. And especially, when that story involves, trying to show exactly what happened on a particular day. That's one of the reasons I'm always, out there trying to, go along when we're executing a warrant or trying to go into the scene of an accident or an incident. I really like to be there kind of on the ground, because if I'm going to have to paint that picture with my words 6 months down the line, really helps me to have a visual sense of what was going on.
Yeah, so an accurate. Yeah.
Yeah. Lawyers and journalists are they have a lot of similar tools in their toolbox, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, this is okay. So I don't know if this makes it into the episode or not, but I was kind of curious because I was talking with my mom this morning, and she was like,
"Who's your mom again?"
Sue Berkey.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. But we were curious. What happened when you seize like a bunch of money? Like what happens with that money? Does that go back to the state or something? Or
well, it depends, right? So what kind of money are we seizing here?
Yeah.
So there was a
drug money, big piles of Breaking Bad type money.
So there was a seizure in 2020. We had a big old meth bust, biggest in Jefferson County history. We took 33 pounds of meth, $11,700, loaded firearm, seized all that from a trunk of a interstate drug trafficker, and the drugs. So we packaged that up and we shipped the criminal case off to the feds. So that was prosecuted by the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District in Des Moines. And there's some kind of complications there, but I'll talk about that another time. But the money itself was seized by our police officers. So one thing that is a tool that the state gives us is a tool called asset forfeiture. So assets that can be proven to be the proceeds of illicit activity can be seized by the state, by the prosecutor, and essentially the thinking being that you shouldn't get the benefit of your crimes, right? It's kind of like along the same story. Let's say I'm a serial killer and I go on a rampage and I kill 20 people and I get arrested and I get held in custody for it. Well, I shouldn't be able to write a book about all of those slangs, those terrible, terrible crimes, publish it. Maybe I'm a good writer but a terrible person, and it goes gangbusters on Amazon. You shouldn't be able to profit from the criminal activity of your acts, right? So along those same lines, if it can be shown that money is the proceeds of drug trafficking, it's seized by the state, and it's there's a formula that goes into play. And I shouldn't quote numbers that I'm not 100% certain on.
No, that's all right.
They go to the seizing agency and to the state for use. Not it doesn't go to pad your budget, but it goes for delineated purposes to essentially help law enforcement do its job. And it's kind of an interesting topic. Civil asset forfeiture has gotten a bad name in some contexts because it can be abused, right? Every tool needs to be carefully watched, right? When they give the government certain authorities to essentially take people's property, I think we need to be very judicious and careful about how those are utilized. But when done in an appropriate way and in a judicious manner, civil asset forfeiture is a very effective tool, right? So we catch some dude with a bunch of cash, drugs, and guns, seizing those funds and utilizing them to further criminal investigations in that area. It's a no-brainer if you ask me.
Yeah.
There are some bad stories out there from other states. I like to say that a lot of times, and this is the media culture we live in, you hear a story from somewhere and it colors your experience everywhere or where we are, right? And one of the problems that I think law enforcement runs into is when somebody steps over the line possibly or abuses discretion anywhere in the nation, it colors everybody's perception here. And I like to say that we run a very clean operation here in Fairfield. No impropriety and no appearance of impropriety is the rule, right? We don't want to do anything that, when looked at, might color us in a bad light. And I always tell this to guys when we're looking at whether we can do a thing. Just because we can do a thing doesn't necessarily mean that we should. And they give us a lot of tools, kind of like, so I don't want to get too into the weeds here, but it's kind of interesting.
Sure, yeah.
I think it was up in Storm Lake, Iowa, small town, northwest Iowa. Last summer, there was a Supreme Court decision that came down, and the tool that's in law enforcement's toolbox is trash rips. Are you familiar with that?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so got a garbage can there. You take it out. Whose trash is that right now?
Oh, right. I think
it's yours, right?
It is.
You take it out. You put it in the dumpster. Whose trash is that?
Right.
Right. So the question is, do you have a right to privacy in the garbage that you put in your garbage can to be taken and picked up by the trash guy?
Mm.
And that's there is a trash rip is something that law enforcement does if they have a reason to believe that there's a crime happening in a house. And for example, let's say that we think that there's a kidnap victim in the basement of this house, right? And we can't prove it because the Fourth Amendment, for very good reasons, protects us, you and me, from Joe cop from kicking the door in just because he's got a hunch, right? We can't do that. Nobody's, your home is your castle and you're protected, and the highest level of protection, and that's a good rule, right?
Yeah.
But what if you have a really good reason, cops really have a really good reason to think that there is terrible stuff happening in that house? Well, we could do a trash rip, which is seize the trash and, see if there's DNA from, a victim, see if there's, a bloody knife in there, bloody handkerchief, whatever it is. If we're looking for evidence of a serious crime, that's a very effective tool. Problem is, and I'm not, trying to besmirch anybody's tactics here, but they got a little over their skis on this trash rip, and I think that they were investigating a house for personal utilization of marijuana, and they found some evidence of it. They took the trash, they opened it up, they charged the guy, and the Supreme Court looked at it. And what I always say is we don't want to do anything that would jeopardize a useful tool in our toolbox for not a very good reason, right? We don't want our names on any Supreme Court cases that kill that tool for everybody, right?
Right.
So that officer's decision to do that resulted in the Supreme Court saying trash rips are now off the table. Now the legislature has gotten involved, and there have been some modifications there, but that's kind of an example of you don't want to be the one that sets bad law, right? There's an expression out there: bad cases make bad law. So we try and do everything clean and everything right so that we are not the face of a Supreme Court case that paints everybody in a bad light. Plus, we want to be the good guys,
Yeah, and I mean, well, first of all, it's an incredible public service, what you're doing for the community. And then I like what you said, too, about all the tools being what they are and then the sort of checks and balances.
We are here to serve the community, right? I mean, that's the whole purpose of local government. I mean, I keep coming back to media. It's really easy to get into like a bad headspace about where we are as a nation, and like kind of you think things are going in the wrong direction and you can't fix it. I always remind myself, and I think it's useful to remind other people that things might be going sideways some places, but I think we have a strong ability to impact directions here, right? Locally, in the city, in the county, and even in the state. I know you've been interviewing politicians
a little
the
bit,
last couple of weeks, and with state government, your state legislators, they live, not too far from you. Most of them have their phone numbers available. You can call them up. Your city councilmen definitely do. Your county supervisors. It's very easy to have access and make an impact on your local politics. And especially when it comes to law enforcement stuff, you can make a big difference if you call your legislature and say, "Hey, this law is wrong. This law is messed up." I'm lucky enough to be on the county attorney's legislative committee, which is a group of it's about 15 or 20 prosecutors from around the state, and we have a lobbyist, and we work. We get together a couple of times a year, and we review what some problems are that we've encountered in doing our jobs. What are some issues in doing our jobs that we could talk to the legislature about fixing, right? Sometimes it's big things, sometimes it's small things, sometimes it's, one thing that I always bump in, not always, but I've been kind of on my high horse about in the last couple of years is drug-induced homicide. So delivery of controlled substance, let's say methamphetamine. If I slide 2 grams of methamphetamine across the table to you and I deliver that to you in Iowa, that's a Class C felony, I can go to prison for 10 years. If you take that and you use it and you die, I just delivered something that killed you. I'm guilty of manslaughter. I would go to prison for 5 years. So So the idea that the delivery of the controlled substance is a more serious offense than the harm that it caused, resulting in death, that manslaughter, is just
well, that doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. So that's one of the things that we've been talking about kind of fixing that. It should be at least as, or close to as serious as the crime that somebody's trying to get away with. So I encourage everybody, you can have an impact here. You can actually have an impact by talking to the people that make decisions, and in my experience, they tend to listen. If you call somebody, a legislator or even a county official, city councilman, and really kind of describe how the law is not working for you and what needs to be fixed, I've found that they tend to listen with open ears. So I think that's the benefit of living in a state with, a little over 3 million people is we get that benefit, whereas, good luck changing things in Washington.
Yeah, absolutely.
I get a lot of questions from people about whether I can do something and how I can do it and whether I should do it or not. I can answer the first 2 of those questions. The third one, I'm not a policymaker. I tell people that make decisions what they can do legally and maybe offer advice on maybe how they can do what they're trying to do in the most efficient manner. When I start offering my opinion on whether they should do something or not, that's just as a private citizen. I implement policy. I'm not a policymaker myself. So when laws get passed by lawmakers, they get passed down to people like me, which are essentially functionaries, right? I mean, that's not a nice way to put it, but I enact the policies that are decided by state legislature. You want your legislators to be making laws, and you want the mechanisms of government to be carrying those out. And I really think that you don't want your county prosecutors to be deciding, what laws get enforced and what laws don't get enforced. Now, obviously, I have, prosecutorial discretion on every case that comes across my desk, and that's from my perspective, the best part of being a prosecutor is, you get to effectuate justice because you don't, if something is wrong, you fix it, right? If a defense attorney sees something that's wrong, he has to ask that it gets fixed. So I really appreciate the fact that in my position, if I see something that's kind of going sideways or it's just not right, I have the jurisdiction and authority to make it right. But at the same time, you don't want, we got 99 counties, you don't want 99 cowboys running around out there deciding what laws get enforced and what don't. So
absolutely.
Yeah. When I got elected down here, the guy I was working for at the time called me up. He was watching the returns come in, and I was a little sad to leave. He was a great boss, and he's like, "Chauncey, congratulations, you're in the brotherhood now, and this is the most interesting and unique job that you'll ever have," and it's been borne out. Being the prosecuting attorney for your hometown is the best job I think I could ever have, and I'd like to keep doing it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thanks so much for being on the show.
It's been a pleasure, man.
Yeah, just talking with you, and I wish you the best of luck.
Same to you, bud.
All right,
take
care. Thanks for listening, you guys. See ya.